Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Shero panel tonight. Thank you for hopping on and joining us tonight. My name is Michael, and my pronouns are she, hers, MT, and I am a Youth Justice Coordinator here at Freedom Inc. I'll be introducing Jean, who is going to be the moderator for tonight. Jean was the one who created the Vinjo Dance Troupe, and I was a part of that. Thank you for her for creating such an amazing space for me to come in and build sisterhood and also continue to come because of the love in the space. I've been with her over for 12 years now, and I am a leader to the dance group now. And because of her, she invested me. That's why I'm the leader. She is an amazing leader, and I look up to her a lot. So I'll pass it on to Jean to come on.
Thank you, Maital. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so forever grateful for you for believing in me and now really taking on this legacy of working with Hmong girls and investing in them. So thank you so much for that introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Please like the video, share it, tag people. Because again, this is our last panel for the month. It was supposed to be for the month of March, right? To really celebrate Women's History Month, in particular, really uplifting Southeast Asian women who have made huge contributions to the movement work in Southeast Asian liberation, right? So just a reminder that it was really about envisioning and uplifting the work of Southeast Asian women. And out of that vision, Kajua had developed 4 T-shirts to highlight 4 amazing Southeast Asian women in the movement work. We have Chaya Chum, who is founder and executive director of Mekong, New York. We have Bo, who is with Cal in the Twin Cities, who has done tremendous political and gender justice work. We have Gajova, who is founder and co-executive director of Freedom Inc. and numerous other amazing gender justice work. And then we have me, who's a baby, but I guess I will brag a little bit about myself, who has just has experience with doing youth justice work, and in the last couple of years have really invested my time and energy into the queer justice work in the Southeast Asian community. You make sure you purchase your T-shirts of the 4 Southeast Asian sheros with their quotes and around them doing movement work. And the proceeds raised from the T-shirts will be supporting programming, leadership development, and the organizing work of Southeast Asian girls. So make sure that you purchase. As you can see the link in the bottom, and the link will be dropped in the comments to make this purchase of the T-shirts and to pre-order posters. So again, thank you all for joining tonight. Before we start, I do want to just make a quick land acknowledgement. I know that we are virtual, but from where I am joining, from where Freedom Inc. as the host, we are joining you all from Whole Chunk Land in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. And we want to acknowledge that as refugees and immigrants that have been displaced due to U.S. White colonialism and supremacy, that we are on this land that, is again Ho Chunk land, and really acknowledging the indigenous roots and stories, and making sure that as we are fighting for liberation and freedom, that we must do it in a way that is really centering and looking at the needs of indigenous people. So again, I hope that wherever you are joining us, that you make sure you know which land you are joining us from. Okay. And then before we jump in, I do want to also just make a quick reminder that um, we had just started April and it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Um, and as someone who, as an organization who does gender justice organizing work, um, we are actively supporting survivors and making sure that they are receiving the services they need, as well as receiving resources to really be able to make change in their communities. And this is so necessary, right? As we've seen in the last 2 weeks in the month of April, around all the violence that our Asian community is experiencing, right? That's um, against our communities and within our communities, right? And that for us to truly address anti-Asian hate, right, that we actually have to make sure that we are addressing U.S. Militarism overseas. We have to address the deportation of our people, right? In that 1 week, we saw the deportation of 33 Vietnamese people. In that 1 week, we saw the mass murdering of Asian women in Atlanta. In the exact same week, we also saw the murder of 3 Hmong women due to domestic violence. So we know that violence, right, as we're addressing violence, we absolutely need to do it with a critical race and gender analysis, right? That we absolutely need to be addressing this white supremacist capitalist state and patriarchal system, that we cannot rely on the police and we cannot rely on certain traditional cultural systems, because in fact, they're the biggest supporter and contributor to gender-based violence. And that we will not be silenced and we will not allow white supremacy and patriarchy to make us small and invisible. We will be loud and bright, and that wherever you look, you will see and hear us. We will call on each other for support and protection. We will care for each other. We will create our own systems of support, love that center on the well-being of women, girls, youth, and LGBTQ people. We will not only build empowerment in each other, we will shift power to us so that we can make decisions and implement real social justice change. So with that, I am really hoping that people can connect to their local organizations, right? Because it is not around just raising awareness. It is around joining movement. It is around organizing for change, right? We are not just around providing services and empowering people. We are around actually making sure that our people have real decision-making power to shift policies and changes to make sure that we are actually able to not survive, but to thrive. So for those who may be seeking, needing support, immediate support right now, we are sharing our Hmong Family Strengthening Helpline. You can call and text that if you're a survivor or needing to seek services. I am also encouraging people to support Freedom Inc.'s mutual aid as we continue to provide support and services to survivors, as well as donating and volunteering for our organizations. And with that, I know I spent a lot of time with that, but with that, I really wanted to lay the groundwork that, right, as we're really organizing and thinking about how we're going to build power, we actually need to do it in a way that is going back to our indigenous roots, to really supporting women and girls in our community. And what better ways than to really look at the cultural producers in our community, right? The folks who are continuously fighting up against white supremacy, to really say, hey, heck no, I'm going to create and I'm going to envision this world in a way that makes most sense for my community, in a way that's going to uplift women and girls and young people and LGBTQ people. And with that, I'm so excited for our Southeast Asian Shero Liberation Panel around cultural producers in the diaspora. I would like to introduce our first panelist for tonight. Dr. Kyung Shong. Kyung Shong was born in 1979 in a refugee camp in Thailand. She came to the US when she was 9 and has lived in the La Crosse area since. Kyung has a bachelor's degree in art and philosophy and a master's degree in education from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. She earned her doctorate in education from the University of Minnesota Duluth. Her degree focused on indigenous language and cultural revitalization. Her research interests include international indigenous peoples movements, Hmong women's critical research frameworks, Hmong language and cultural revitalization, traditional Hmong oral knowledge, Hmong education, and the threat of globalization to diversity, indigenous languages, and indigenous cultures. Kyung's advocacy for indigenous people's rights led her and her late partner to create Widening the Circle, an annual education conference that focuses on the achievement gap of Hmong and Native students in Wisconsin. In previous years, the themes of this two-day conference have revolved around historical trauma, cultural competency, cultural language loss and revitalization, rebuilding healthier communities with indigenous roots, and the intersection of domestic violence and sexual assault with patriarchy, racism, colonization, and oppression. Kyung has been a longtime member of the La Crosse community. Her advocacy for Hmong women started at a very young age when she would challenge unjust patriarchal practices that excluded her and her sisters. Kyung co-founded Yeshia Inc. in 2016 with the former staff of the Hmong Center and local Hmong community members. Yeshia Inc.'s mission is to build a culturally vibrant Hmong community with Hmong language and culture as the foundation. Through her work, she hopes to empower Hmong youth to claim their voices and advance changes that will lead to a healthy and vibrant Hmong community. This quote from an Australian Aboriginal activist best represents her work. If we can imagine the injustice, then we can imagine its opposite, and we can have justice. So thank you, Kyung, for joining us tonight. Our second panelist is Tracy Nguyen. Tracy was born and raised in San Jose, California. Growing up with refugee parents from Vietnam largely defines who she is today. A driven community organizer with a creative entrepreneurial spirit, Tracy received a BA in Media Studies and Ethnic Studies from UC Berkeley, which seeded her activist journey during the last 10 years. Tracy worked within the nonprofit sector to uplift the voices and power of refugees, immigrants, workers, women, youth, LGBT community, and incarcerated individuals. With her creative passion for visual storytelling, she decided to take her vision for justice into her own hands and became a freelancer in videography and graphic facilitation. Today, she is sheltered in place in San Jose with her parents, trying to combine all her worlds. So thank you to Tracy Nguyen for joining us tonight. And then our third panelist is Morrison Che. I'm sorry, Morrison, if I'm pronouncing your last name wrong. Morrison is a 29-year-old Cambodian Thai American gay cis man and lives in the heart of Central Valley, Stockton, California. Morrison graduated from California State University of Sacramento in spring of 2015 and pursued a bachelor's degree in fashion marketing and design. He's had extensive work and experiences in the fashion industry for over a decade and is now pursuing his truest passion as an influencer. After many years of working in the fashion industry, he decides to take a turn and share his passion in beauty, psychology, and Cambodian culture. Morrison's main objectives and goals is to share his passion in beauty, psychology, and Cambodian culture, combined by making transformation videos that reflect and express his inner artist, showing his ability to transform from male form into female form and combining that with Cambodian ancient looks and beauty of different eras. Morrison became assistant instructor in 2018 for Murdoch Khmer Performing Arts of Stockton, California. Dancing in different roles of characters paved the way for him to express his art in its most purest and truest form. He is currently holding the instructor and assistant role for Murdoch Khmer Performing Arts while curating contents and venturing into social media, sharing his love and passion for all things beauty, psychology, and Cambodian culture. Morrison hopes one day to be a household name that symbolizes confidence, strength, and Cambodian excellence. So thank you for Morrison for joining us tonight. And lastly, I wanted to introduce Mooks, who would have been our fourth panelist. Unfortunately, she is unable to join us during this time. But again, I wanted to just make sure that we made time to introduce her, as she is someone who has made, again, tremendous contributions to the movement. Mooks is a Lao writer. CNN's United Shades of America host W. Kamau Bell called her work revolutionary. Governor Mark Dayton recognized her with a Lao Artist Heritage Month proclamation. She's a recipient of a Sally Award for Initiative from the Ordway Center for Performing Arts, which recognizes bold new steps in strategic leadership undertaken by an individual in creating projects or artistic programs never before seen in Minnesota that will have a significant impact on strengthening Minnesota's artistic cultural community. She's the author of the children's book, When Everything Was Everything, and is best known for her award-winning play, Kung Fu Zombies vs. Cannibals. Her plays have been presented in the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center in New York, Theater Mu in Minnesota, Lower Path Theater in LA, Asian Improv Arts in Illinois, and elsewhere. Other awards include Grants Fellowship from the John S. and James L. Knights Foundation, Jerome Foundation, Bush Foundation, Andy Warhol Foundation, MAP Foundation, Playwrights Center, Forecast Public Art, MRAC, MSAB, and others. Mooks is currently an Andrew W. Mellon Foundation Playwright in Residence at Theater Mu, a McKnight's Foundation Fellow in Community Engaged Practice Arts, and a Jerome Hill Artist Fellow and Playwright. So thank you for all of our panelists for joining us tonight. I would like to welcome them all onto the stage now. I know folks have been waiting to see them. So please show them some love in the comments. Make sure you're tagging people to join us for this rich conversation tonight. So I know I've been talking a lot, and I actually wanted to make room for you all to, really introduce yourself in your own words, and to possibly even answer two questions that I would like to pose to you at this time. I think we'll go with Kyung first. We'll go with Kyung first. And I wanted you to, just introduce yourself. And also, why do you think you're on this panel? And with everything that has happened in the month of March, just how have you been and what have you been doing in the last 2 weeks?
Thank you, Young, for inviting me to be part of this panel. It's such an honor to be with like really great people that are paving the way for our communities. So thank you. I'm really honored to be here. My name is Kyung. Since we've been here in the U.S., no one really can say Kyung except for Hmong folks. So what I'm known by, or what people call me most, is Song. And I came here, arrived here as a refugee in 1987 with my parents. I was 9 years old, and I grew up in La Crosse and have lived here since. I use she, her pronouns, and I work currently as the executive director at Diaspora Inc., a nonprofit that does gender-based violence work and provides social services to the Hmong community. And all of that, we try to ground it and center Hmong language and Hmong culture and Hmong identity in the midst of all of that. So that's me. I believe I was invited to be on this panel because of my background, what I do, and what I'm most passionate about. I started on this journey at a really young age. If you don't know the demographics of Wisconsin and La Crosse, it's really white. It's basically 95% white. And the other 5% are like people of color, and Hmong folks predominantly make up the large percentage of the folks of color here in the city. So going to school in the 90s, growing up in the 90s, it was really hard, right? Because it was Hmong folks are just arriving from the refugee camps, and we had to go through a lot of like extreme poverty, right? And amongst all of that, the racism, and we didn't have anybody else that we could go to for support or help. And so I struggle a lot throughout my whole K-12 education, and it actually is really traumatizing for me to talk about it, because it was just a lot of racism, like getting beat up, right, going to school, getting spit at, right, like we sit at the lunch table, right, in the lunchroom together, but you were in your own corner, and we were like the poor, low-income kids, and so there's a lot of stigma around, just living in poverty, and so I hated it, the K-12 school here. But I knew that like there was always something that was missing, and though I was never taught like my, like to be a proud Hmong person, I knew that like that was who I was, and I think that it was like my love for my parents and how much like I loved them and how hard they had to fight to just feed us, because they didn't know English, they didn't know how to navigate this world, and to this day they still don't. I just got done helping my mom send some money to some folks in Laos, because she didn't know how to do it. So in between my meetings and stuff, I run over and I helped her. And so, like I really loved them, and I knew that like they were such good people, and that like as a Hmong person, that was worth loving, even though we went to school with like white people who hated us, who beat us, who spit on us, who like marginalized us. I knew that we were really good people, and there was good things that was worth holding on to and worth passing on to our children. And so like growing up, I was always questioning this idea of who am I, right? Who are we as Hmong people? What makes me different? What's worthwhile about me and my identity and my people? Why should we even exist? Because we're taught so much to just hate ourselves. This is the question that I kept exploring even as an undergrad and as a graduate student. And while I was even writing my dissertation, was who are Hmong people? What makes us who we are? And I was very privileged during those times to kind of travel the whole world through scholarships and through funding and on other like grants. And so I like traveled through Vietnam, to China, to Australia, and during all those travels, those 20 years of travel to different Hmong communities throughout the world, the question that I always posed to them was, what makes you Hmong? Right. And sometimes it was, because we eat rice, or we have the same type of clothing. Right. But when you narrow down all those samples, it came down to, it was our language that made us who we are. It was our language that made us unique. And so that's why I decided that like the rest of my life, I was going to maintain that. I was gonna not necessarily preserve it, because I think preserving is like, though it is dying, but that I was gonna revitalize it. I was gonna help our community keep our language and our culture alive. So I'll stop at that so we have enough time for our other speakers.
Thank you, Kyung. Thank you so much. And we're definitely gonna revisit everything that you just said. Next, can we have Tracy? You introduce yourself a little bit, why you think you're on this panel. How have you been?
Hey, everyone. Oh my God, I have so many feelings and thoughts right now. And right before this, I'm going to call Zhong and I out. We were like, we feel like a hot mess. And it's been over a year in pandemic. So for anyone to be like put together, like it's okay to not be put together as well. So that's where I'm coming in with. But also, I also shared a status right now that I said, how did I get on a Freedom Inc. panel? Because Freedom Inc., I'm like such a fangirl about all the work that Freedom Inc. has done. And I believe just the relationships we built in our national spaces as queer Southeast Asian queer folks is the magic behind staying connected with all these cultural producers. And so my story is around, I was in my bio, I was involved in the nonprofits for my whole young adult career, organizing with a lot of traumatized communities and marginalized folks. And essentially, I was being completely exploited by the nonprofit industrial complex. And at the peak of my organizing, I was organizing Vietnamese nail salon workers in the Bay Area, California, and I love the work. Me and my co-organizer, we were both queer and GNC, and we were organizing in language, building power amongst our elders. And then the toxic nonprofit stuff happened, and the organization completely shut down. 20 people walked away from it, and it crushed my soul. And when it crushed my soul, what came out of it was creative healing. So me and my partner Jang, my organizing partner Jang, created an initiative called Cutie Vit Cafe, where we actually took the nail salon workers and we organized an intergenerational feast for Lunar New Year, Vietnamese Lunar New Year Tết, and we performed an LGBT showcase in front of our elders and our parents. And we also invited ourselves into our elders' kitchens and asked them to show us how to cook. So imagine like queer and trans GNC folks all up in these like elder aunties' kitchen, learning how to cook, building relationships, and redefining like healing that was led by LGBT folks and artists. So then Cutie Vit Cafe happened, and then I created Sunkiss Production, which is a queer media film collective, and we created a film about gender and clothing and family. And then I also at the same time learned how to be a graphic facilitator, which is like illustrating and drawing the complicated concepts. And so I call myself a multimedia artist, and Hope is gonna go ahead and just click through the slide. I call myself a multimedia artist because I love exploring all things creative that bring us alive, that tell our stories, that heal us from the compounding trauma of our country, of the oppressive powers, but also the organizing work itself and how traumatic the organizing work is. So I'm at a place in my career, in my life, in my artistry, where I'm healing from the burnout while continuing to be burnout, while continuing to explore my creative avenues. So I'm a filmmaker, and what you see on the screen is how I work with organizations and activists to illustrate what we're talking about when we talk about justice, when we talk about liberation. Like, what does that actually visually mean? And so it was important for me to learn this skill. As you can see, it's literally just doodling. I doodle a lot of these conversations as they were happening on panels and workshops. It's a visual language, and I think it's important if we're going to talk about liberation and we're going to envision liberation, we also have to visualize liberation. So the last few weeks, I've been doing a lot in the last few weeks. I've been just kind of focusing on my inner circle and taking care. I live with my parents, so I'm an intergenerational household. I just had a birthday party and I invited all my homies, and we haven't seen each other for a year. And so reclaiming community and rebuilding those connections that were stripped away from us from this pandemic was really important for me to stay grounded, and to offer a healing space where energetically we can see each other again, where we I have a group of the Cutie Vit Cafe group. If Hope, you can link that. We're getting together in May to do a virtual showcase online about our experiences in the past year. So there's a lot. I do a lot, and that's me. Thank you
so much, Tracy. I love all of that. Yeah, and I forgot you're an Aries baby. So yes.
Fire season. Everyone's getting burnt out by it.
We needed the new
But
energy.
we thrive in it, right, Jung?
Yep. Yeah, thank you so much. And last but not least is our beautiful Morrison, who showed up tonight. So thank you so much for showing up, looking fabulous tonight. Morrison, if you can also introduce yourself, just how have you been the last 2 weeks? What have you been up to?
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a very great honor to be part of this panel. And just to point this out, I resonate with all of your stories. I feel like when you guys speak, you guys spoke to a part of my life that I lived before. And I'm just as messy on the inside. I might be put together physically, but I'm actually messy on the inside. But but my name is Morrison, and my pronouns are he and him. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I feel like the pandemic kind of stripped, like what Tracy said, stripped away our like identity a little bit there. I'm kind of nervous to speak, as a year ago I wasn't. So now it's kind of like funny for me to sit in front of the camera and talk again. However, I believe that my story and my presence being here is it's due to women's empowerment. I think that's just why I'm here, and I think that's the one thing that's very important for me to express through this art, women empowerment. And also, I feel like everybody's story is a little bit unique in their own way. So, growing up, I have a lot of like layers in terms of like almost like an onion. You just keep peeling back and peeling back, and there's just so much to identify. I grew up being gay, and then I grew up being in a low income household, and being dark skinned and Cambodian, and just all of these layers, and having to navigate through a society and a community that just I felt like at a young age I just never could find that niche or that like belonging. So growing up, I kind of just chose my profession and chose my career path in a way that it was like safe. And so for a very long time, I've moved here and there to Seattle, then to Sacramento, then back to Stockton, and just trying to fight through the fashion industry and just kind of trying to open up the door. And it just seems like that door just keeps closing on me, and it just never made sense to me. And so the pandemic happened, I lost my job, and then I just kind of like had a moment to myself, and I thought, this is not what I really wanted to do. It was more of like a safe choice. So I had to like dig deep and ask myself like, who am I? And I think that's the question that like we're always going to continue to ask ourselves as we progress in our life. Is who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And I think the most truest form is me being able to express my inner femininity. I felt like when I was younger, any time that I expressed like this feminine trait or feminine side of myself, I was always like shunned, or I would get made fun of. And so I kind of learned to mask that femininity. Even when I go off to work, like I would dress up in a way where people couldn't spot me. And then I just kind of figured, like I am a feminine gay guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's very important for not just for the heteronormative society to know, but also for the LGBTQ community to know as well, because I think there's a lot of like layers when it comes to that, and we're kind of like judging each other on that a little bit. And so I just wanted to express fully on who I am, and just being my true feminine nature. I was raised by predominantly a lot of women. I have 3 sisters and a mother and an aunt and a grandma, and they kind of just all combined into who I am today. And I think my whole being of being here is about woman empowerment. So this is the reason why I'm dressed up like this today. At first I was like, do I want to go as a guy and just kind of like show them that I'm a guy, or do I want to like dress up as a woman and be part of this panel as a woman, right? And express that inner femininity. And so I think that's the reason why I'm here too. Yeah.
Thank you so much, you all. I'm loving this. I really wish that we were actually in person. Oh, okay. So sorry. We were so into this. We forgot to show some photos, right, of Morrison's beautiful outfits and makeup. Yes. Yeah, thank you so much for that. No, I'm loving that, all of that, and I'm so loving the fact that you came as you tonight, right? As the feminine woman in you. And I think, right, like this is the space for us to right be able to do that as cultural producers, as people who are really trying to envision this new world. Like let's go all out, let's practice it, and we're going to protect each other if anybody got something to say, you know. um, yeah. And I think thank you all for just a quick little introduction. I did want to like I have like a bunch of questions that are coming up from right now, and before I do start, um, for all the audience members, just a reminder, please make sure you're sharing this video, tag people, whatever questions that are surfacing up for you, and you want to ask any of our amazing panelists, please put it down in the comment. We'll make time for questions. But I'm gonna go first with my question. And I actually wanted to ask this question to Morrison around, I know that a lot of your current art form right now is really around changing from male form into female form, and also around Khmer dance. And and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm also not Khmer, but from my knowledge, Khmer dance has, and the Khmer ballet has always been traditionally women, right, who practice it. I also know that through the Khmer Rouge, right, a lot of artists were actually executed, and a lot of the art form, was like pretty much gone or hidden, right? So like my question for you is, what does it mean for you right now as like, a cis gay man to really be practicing this art form? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for your community? What are some like messages that you have gotten over the course of your work as a Khmer dancer and instructor at this time too?
Yeah. So what it absolutely means a lot, like the world to me. I love, 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 love dancing. I started dancing when I was like 6 years old, and I've always been kind of integrated into my cultural background because of my grandmother and my mom. Like my whole family is just a whole bunch of artists, and in a way that is innate as well. It's nothing that that was taught to them or they had to like learn and like kind of like going to school for it. All of my family are just like innately super talented, and so being able to be a dancer and being able to hold this art form in my heart, it means the absolute world to me, especially with a lot of Khmer artists being executed during the Khmer Rouge. Like it's a very rough time since that time for us to kind of revamp everything all over again. Artists all got together and kind of having to re-energize and rebuild and kind of build on a culture just again after being enslaved and being killed off for almost 4 years. And it makes me proud to know that or makes me proud to actually be a holder of this art form and be a part of that lineage of artists that survived. And especially with my grandmother and family, they're amazing, and being able to call myself an artist too, just how they call themselves artists, it makes me feel like I belong with them, and this is the right thing that I'm doing because I'm carrying what they're giving to me. Yeah, it means the world to me.
Thank you. I love that, right? Like really carrying that lineage. And so then I guess I wanted to go to you, Tong, around, I think your a lot of your work has been around like the Hmong language, and what is it? People have already been saying that within, I'm sorry, I have all my numbers mixed up, but within a century or something like that, right? That the Hmong language would be extinct. And I guess for you, what does that mean? And for you, especially as somebody who, right, people may not think of language so much as an art form. Why is it an art form for you? And why is it so important, right, as we're doing liberation work, to really be focusing on language?
Yeah, I think that scientists or linguists predict that by the end of this century, 90% of the languages will be dead. There will be dead languages, and 100 of the most common languages will continue on, just because the globalization of the world and the nature of the internet and stuff. Everyone is learning dominant languages, and so Hmong language is one of those languages that will be extinct by the end of this century. And so for me, it's really it comes down to that language. Your language is who you are. Your language gives you perspective on the world. Your language is like your philosophy on life, and the cosmology of how your world is made up. And so I think that a lot of people think that, a language is the way in which we just use to communicate with each other, but it is way deeper than that. Languages kind of is like a glimpse into our souls of who we are, right? It's just like the internal organs of us. And so for me, that's really important, because you're right. Like, and when I said the death of a language is the death of who we are, I don't mean that like Hmong people are gonna like not exist as like physical, right? Folks, right? But that like who we are on the inside is gonna die, and that is our culture, right? And the beauty of our culture, right? The way in which like we are taught to see the world, and it becomes really dangerous in this capitalist like society. So I'll give you an example. Like, right, English is very direct. English is very efficient, because the culture of English people is based around capital, and your worth and your productivity is based on that, right? And so your language has to be efficient. It has to be about how do you get from A to B the quickest way. And Hmong language is not that, right? Hmong people is not that, right? Hmong people and who we are is family centered, is the we and not the I. And so language is poetic. Language is not about the efficiency of it. Language is about expressing yourself in a way that people understand you in a very, very like deep level. And Hmong language is very poetic, and Hmong language is very beautiful, but it can't be explained in English in that way, because English, you can say English language is poetic and there's poems in English and so on and so forth, and not to the extent of what Hmong language is, right? Hmong language is a musical language, right? Like you can sing like the 8 tones in Hmong, and it could be a whole like conversation. And so that's what it is. That's what it means to have like what it means to have a social justice and language justice lens, is that if Hmong language doesn't exist, then Hmong people as a people will cease to exist as well. And it is that diversity of who we are, right? All the languages in the world, the way in which we see the world, the way in which we are brought up to be in this world and our place in this world has so much to do with our language. And if we don't have that, then we will all just become this like monoculture in which we see the world and how we interact with the world. And we already see that, right? How fast the world is changing. We already see how we all kind of think the same, right? In this very logical, right, Aristotle way of thinking and viewing the world. And that could become very, very dangerous, because it is our diversity that is gonna like that is going to save us. It's our diversity, the way in which we view the world and see the world, that is going to save us. It's not one way of looking at a problem, but having like 1,000 different ways of solving that problem is a better solution than just having like 1 or 2 ways of solving that problem. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Yo, Chong, I'm all like, oh my gosh. So the thing about, okay, I'm sorry, I'm making my comments. Sorry, y'all. This is what y'all get for making me moderator. I'm all like, Chong, we don't really talk that much, and you don't talk that much. As far as I know, Chong is very, very quiet. I'm all like, girl, you need to talk a lot more. just spitting out truth. Um, yeah, no, I totally agree with all of that. And I think as my work in doing more like leadership development and deepening my understanding and really being committed to the work, I'm all like, dang, like I need to really brush up on my Hmong. Because I do agree with you that it hits differently in the way that we're able to access our community, and the way that I'm even thinking about how I want to organize, and that it cannot just be here in the US, that it has to be globally, and how am I going to really connect with other people. And I think along with that, right, I remember Tracy talking to you just around like the importance of like how are we actually making our movements accessible to people, right? Because I think a lot of our organizing is in English, right? So either you have to be able to speak it here and listen to it or read it, and also it's just we use so much jargon. So I've always like been really inspired by your graphic note taking and how you've been able to really interpret it in different ways so that it could be a lot more accessible to folks. And I wanted you to share a little bit more around that and just your thinking around that and your hopes around graphic note taking.
Good segue, Zhong. Before I answer that, I would love to respond to Zhong, Chong, about language as well. Quick story. In the Bay Area, one of our projects is called Bữa ăn tiếng Việt, which is like a dinner evening with Viet folks speaking English, practicing English. And it was just like this organic Facebook group. And then like 2-3 months in, we found ourselves in a house. It was my partner's house. And there was like 20 queer and trans Viet folks, like coincidentally, right? It wasn't even a queer-centered initiative, but all of a sudden there was 20 people speaking Vietnamese over Vietnamese food, and we're talking about like queerness and gender, and that's actually what also was part of the Cutie Vit Cafe project that I mentioned earlier. That project, that was the most successful organizing tool that I used, language, right? And on top of that, like queer and gender organizing, we all those folks helped us produce the intergenerational Feast of Resistance with our elders, where we were brave enough to be on stage performing in front of our elders about coming out and being queer and gay and GNC and trans. And so that language piece, I think, is incredibly radical and inspiring, and I just really resonate with that. And there was at one point, the project, we took all those folks into the kitchens of our elders to learn how to cook in language. And one of the kitchens was my mom. I organized my mom, and I asked her, how did it feel to cook with a bunch of LGBT identified folks? And her response, she was on a panel, her response was, you all care more about your roots in language. You know, she said straight people, but what she meant was like, wow, like the queer folks care more, but that's not true. And so I think for her, it was a revelation, like, you know, like how we practice healing and knowing our roots, like the way it manifested in her kitchen, like validated queer and trans identities for her. And that was really a big moment in my life for her to validate that. So I just want to share that real quick. But part of my other work is around graphic note-taking, graphic facilitation. And I do believe in making our movements accessible. And so a lot of the organizing work I was doing was with refugee women, Vietnamese women, incarcerated folks inside the prison, LGBT folks with limited English proficiency. And you know, everywhere I was going, we were just so heavy-headed with our jargon, with our social justice language, with our intellect. And yes, like it's brilliant to have those frameworks, but the people who were organizing and the people who were building power with had no, like, they were barely understanding or absorbing it, right? They weren't really, I mean, it just felt like there was a big cultural gap, a big language gap. And I was so frustrated, like, why are we talking all the way up here when we're not talking to the people we're serving, or the ones who are actually leading the way, the impacted folks. So I started learning this skill. It was this skill that's been around since the 90s, and like a bunch of like, you know, non-POC people contracted lots of money in all these like sectors, and I never saw it come into the movement spaces. So I told myself, I'm gonna learn this skill. It literally is just drawing marker on paper. I'm gonna learn this skill so that I can bring this language in front of our folks who we're organizing with. And so, yeah, I did it for like our nail salon policy that we were building out with the nail salon workers. I went into San Quentin, and like all we had was like a whiteboard and a dry erase marker, and all our classes were so just lecture-y. I just went up to the front of the room and I drew in front of like, you know, the classes that we the volunteers came in to teach the folks who were incarcerated. It's called Roots, Restoring Our True Selves. And so, yeah, I think people wake up, they're engaged, they feel included. If they're participating in the conversation, their words get captured onto the image. Their bodies, their ideas, their concepts get documented in a visual form. And what that does to a room of people is really validate their experiences, validate their ideas, and cohesively bring together all our different visions onto paper. And so that just became my thing. Like I wanted to continue documenting and illustrating the conversations, especially in spaces where it's inaccessible, so that people can look at an image and be like, wow, that speaks to me because that character looks like me, or that speaks to me because those colors make me more intrigued to look at what it's saying. And, you know, a lot of my training was around like, how do you use colors? Like Jong, you were in the workshop, like how do you use colors? How do you use lines? Like it's not inaccessible to draw and doodle for the movement. And the way we were raised as children in kindergarten, you know, your teacher or your classmate tells you from a young age whether or not you draw well or not. And that's not true. And that's the same for a lot of art, right? The way we're traumatized as children, we carry that shame with us. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I can't draw, or I can't be creative. And that's just not true. And the workshops we do, when we let people tap into that, it is liberating. It's liberating for your body to let your body create art, is liberating for your mind and soul. And it's liberating for the audience to imagine a world that's not just English communication, right? Like we're not just using these limited tools that we were forced upon as first 1.5 or second gen in this country. Like we can reclaim that in like creative ways. Yeah, so.
Oh. Okay. I'm like, wait, did Tracy freeze? Oh no, Tracy. Okay. I hope we get you back soon. Yeah. No, thank you so much for that, Tracy. Yeah, and folks, if you are interested in graphic facilitation and learning that, definitely reach out to Tracy, because yeah, I'm always in awe of folks who are able to do that, and always thinking about like, dang, how do I make it a lot more accessible to my folks, especially as someone who like is still learning how to speak, right? Is going back to really focus and relearning how to speak my native language, right? And just making sure that really going back to our roots and making the movement accessible to folks. So it does seem like we lost Tracy right now. Hopefully her internet connection was good and we can get her back soon. But I did want to like just pose a question for Morrison and Kyung, and whoever wants to go first, go first. But if you also have any questions that you want to ask each other, definitely bring it up, because I do want this just to be very conversational. And again, audience members, please put down any comments and questions that you have that you want the panelists to answer. But I wanted to ask you all, like, through your work, what is it that, through your art form, what is it that you're really hoping to accomplish? And I guess especially during this time with COVID, with things being shut down, with us not being able to really physically be in the same spaces with each other. And also as we see I wouldn't say necessarily an increase in anti-Asian hate, but I guess that there's more of a visibility around anti-Asian hate, right? Because we've always known that there's violence and anti-Asian hate, and that we are a result of that, right? Being here in the U.S. because of U.S. White supremacy and colonialism that actually, right, the things that they've done in Southeast Asia is the result of why we're here. And so I guess just with everything that's currently going on in the current climate and political landscape, what is it that you're really hoping to accomplish with your art form as a cultural producer, right? Whether that's being a performing artist, and whether that's with your language. And yeah, so I wanted to ask that, and I'll see whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Morrison.
Okay, I'll be the first to go then. So, what I hope to achieve through my art form is creating conversations and basically safe spaces. I think in order for the world to get better, it starts with one conversation, right? And to better our community, that conversation needs to happen in order for us to get to know each other and to understand each other, because everybody has a different story and everybody has a different upbringing. And so my art form specifically derives from not being heard and not feeling that belongingness, and just choosing choices that basically fits in everybody's eye. Because I was a gay guy, I wanted to go into fashion and all that stuff. So I think that my art form, the reason why I'm doing this is so that we can have conversations and start better understanding one another, and especially through different cultures too. So I hope that 10 years from now, if I'm still doing this, that I would be able to leave a legacy behind me where, you know, I have a lot of women in my family, and I also have a lot of nieces. And so I just hope that, you know, I'm leaving behind, you know, an abundance of confidence and just you know, a beacon of hope for them, in order for them to grow up in a community that they can feel confident in and be who they are, and not have to feel shameful in the choices that they choose. And even, you know, for me being, I'm turning 30, oh my gosh, this year, and you know, being able to, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just said that. Being, you know, able to kind of take a step back and kind of choose for myself at this age, and you know, leaving that message that, you know, it's not too late to choose who you are and to kind of push forward, you know, your confidence, and you know, just expressing who you really are. And I think that's what I hope to achieve.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, Chong. I know you unmuted, but I just have to. I'm so sorry. I'm taking over. Oh my God. No, Morrison. I'm also turning 30. I never even thought that I would make it to 30. But I do want to say something around what you said. And I think it resonates so much for me. You know, also as like a queer woman, it's like choosing yourself. I think that resonates so much with me, right? Like really choosing ourselves at this time as like queer people, as Southeast Asian people, and saying like, no, heck no, I'm going to choose myself. I owe it to myself. I owe it to the community. I owe it to the younger generation, right? And I owe it to the movement to really live out my authentic self is so powerful. So thank you so much for that. And then Chong, I know you unmuted, but I kind of wanted to like touch on a little something. Because I think with your language, right, and making sure that that we're the revitalization of the Hmong language, and also just making sure that it's accessible. We've seen this huge increase of the visibility of anti-Asian hate, but we've known that's always been here, right? And I'm really interested in a particular work that you actually do that I'm not sure if a lot of people know that Yeshia and you do, which is actually the hate crime report that you all have been working on, and also the anti Hmong violence report. And I'm also wondering if you can talk a little bit more about that and why it's actually so important, and why it is actually part of your cultural producing.
Yeah, so Morrison, that was really beautiful. And I would say like that's the same, like along the line of work that I do too, is teaching young people to love themselves, right? As Hmong people in this case. And really like being authentic with themselves, right? And loving like the bad and the ugly, not only like the beautiful part of Hmong culture, but also the bad and ugly part of Hmong culture, right? And what's to love about that? But that's for them to decide and to say, okay, those are the things about Hmong culture that I don't like, right? Because it's harmful to Hmong women and girls. So I'm going to change. And I think like what I really want to see and accomplish in my lifetime is to teach young people to love themselves and be who they are, and to choose that, right? To have that decision, right? To like John, like you said, to choose that, right, for themselves, and not necessarily what the environment or what people from the outside or dominant culture is telling them about who they are, but like that they choose who they want to be. And that is in itself a very, very beautiful piece. So I just want to say like that's kind of along the line, like same lines of what is the work that like I want to do and I hope to accomplish, in this work that I do. But like Jean, about what you said about like language and stuff, like it's really hard during this time for us to teach young people to love themselves, right? Because like they with the pressure of social media and what is cool and what is not cool. Like young people, that's the last thing they want to do is to stand out. And being Hmong is going to stand out, right? Being queer is going to stand out, and they don't want that. They just want to fit in. They just want to be normal. And so it's really hard for them to do that. But I hope that, like we as an agency will be a door for them to walk through and to be safe enough to choose to be like themselves, their most authentic selves, and to exist and to love themselves in that purest form. And so and then what we found out through this time, right, in creating a safe space for people to be in, is that there is not a lot of safe spaces where we are in the middle of Wisconsin, right? In the Midwest, there's just not a lot of safe spaces for our people to exist. And so we started this hate forum about like maybe I would say 8-9 years ago, where people could just come and report, hate incidents that were happening to them, whether it be violent or not violent, maybe in, what in whatever form, if they felt like they weren't safe, or they were being targeted for, their race, that we have this form in which they could then go to, either they could call us or they could, do it through our website, and in which they will be able to report that. And we decided to do this because there was no documentation of the things that like white people were doing to the folks in our community, and then they just as Asian folks, as Hmong people, we just learn to just take it when bad things happen to us. Like we believe that somehow, right, we must have provoked them to say those things or to do those horrible things to us, and we just accept it, and we live with it, with the trauma and all of that, and that then manifests itself in different ways and different forms. And so what we wanted to do was give people an outlet to either talk to, right, the advocates in our agency, or to really come to an understanding that like it's not their fault that these things are happening to them. And we really started exploring these hate incidents and hate crimes that were happening to Hmong folks, because it seemed like all the like hunting acts, and accidents that were happening where Hmong people were being killed by white hunters and white men. We realized that why is it all happening in Wisconsin, right? Like Minnesota has larger Hmong population of Hmong people, California, but all these hate crimes that were happening to Hmong people were happening in Wisconsin, and it was just like weird. And we wanted to understand like what is the culture of Wisconsin that is allowing these things to happen to Hmong folks? And so we kind of went on a tangent and decided that we were gonna write this data and this report on what is happening to Hmong people, and why is it happening to Hmong folks only in Wisconsin, right? Even though the report would look at like the 3 states that predominantly where Hmong people live in, but we wanted to understand this very unique phenomena of like hate crimes that were happening to Hmong folks, and really maybe come up with a way to explain it, and so that way then we could actually keep our people safe. And it may be a little bit naive in thinking that maybe a report would change, right, policy, and the report would change the way in which people think about hate crimes and what is a hate crime in our communities. But at the same time, we wanted it to really open people's eyes to these horrible things that were happening to seems like to only Hmong people in Wisconsin. So my time is up, and I'll leave it there.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm like, oh my God. That was really good. I'm like feeling all bad because I'm like, dang, we do not have enough time to like really talk through all the amazing work and that you are doing and really picking your minds. But yeah, no, Tracy, I think I wanted to also make some time for you to also really answer the question around just with like the current political climate and conditions, what is it that you are really hoping to accomplish as a cultural producer, right? Through the intersection of your arts and social justice.
Oh, yeah. So many directions I want to go with this. So as I mentioned before, like I was all over the nonprofit industrial complex as an organizer, and that burnt me out. And that led me to my cultural creative healing. But at the heart of it, I am such an organizer. Like whatever I do creatively, I'm always thinking about how do I mobilize, build power, empower people, and transform, right, our situations, transform our systems. And out of all the art stuff that I'm doing, one of my biggest goals is to make films. I'm a filmmaker, and so Sunkiss Productions, thank you for posting that, is my dream because I believe organizing happens in the creative realm. So for example, after one of our nonprofits completely combusted and all the toxic leadership, like pushed away all the advocates and organizers, a group of us started a short film. And we also brought in the nail salon organizers, the nail salon workers that we were working with, and we casted them as the Vietnamese moms of our film. So the film was about a genderqueer person who didn't want to wear a gendered ao dai, which is a Vietnamese dress, and their mom's a seamstress, and she was policing their gender and their clothing. So we asked the salon worker, we're like, all right, we're not going to work at that nonprofit anymore, but we're making this film. Do you want to come be an actress in it? And she was really excited. And, she was saying because we needed someone to speak Vietnamese on the camera. And it was really hard to find Vietnamese actresses who are willing to be like a villain mom who was like oppressive to their LGBT kid. And so as we were playing the scenes, and it was actually pretty traumatic scenes, she came out to us afterwards, and she was like, what is this script about? And so she was in a room full of queer and trans actors and cast members and crew members. And we explained to her, we're creating this film because we're trying to defy gender, blah, 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 right? And we all in our broken Vietnamese. And she was like, oh, okay. And so when we had our film screening, she invited her friends, and the generation of Viet folks who we want the film to be seen. And so the filmmaking allowed for us to do intergenerational work, right? To break through language barriers. It allowed us to do LGBT healing. And our whole cast and crew was freaking POC, like cutie pop, queer and trans POC. And that was a healing process. It was a healing process. It was a story that needed to be told. And and people were empowered. Like, you know, that's organizing. That's organizing when you can walk away with that and you have a community of people you can mobilize. And, you know, the next time we need a narrative to produce, we want to make a film, we want to make a short film, we want to make a documentary, you know, we have that community of filmmakers to activate and to elevate and to create. And so, you know, it's a hard journey. It's not linear. Like, I haven't been doing filmmaking because I'm in scarcity mode. In the pandemic, we can't film. You know, I can't make a living off videography right now. People aren't seeking videography services. And so, like, the goal is always like, how do in midst of crises after crises, how do you stay true to your artistic vision, and how do you stay true to the belief in yourself that the gift that you have can create change and impact. And organizing doesn't have to look one way or the other. Like, the movement spaces have blown up, people's political consciousness have blown up during this last year. How do we break through those walls and create more avenues for people to tap into their art and creativity to really transform the narratives and transform the experiences people have when they're in community, when they're creating? Yeah, so much more I want to say.
I'm like, mic drop. We could just end now. Yeah. Before I start talking, because I know I talk a lot. Sorry. Is there anything that that folks wanted to add on to what any of y'all said that resonated with y'all? Okay. If not, then it doesn't seem like we got any like questions from audience members, but you are receiving a lot of mad love. Yeah, and I just wish we have more time with each other. We are getting close to the 8:30 mark. And so I guess I just kind of wanted to, I have two more questions. One of them is the closing question for tonight. And yeah, I'm just going to propose it. You can either run with it, or you can, you know, do whatever else you want to do and say whatever else you want to say. But I really love what you said, Tracy, around organizing happens in the creative realm, because I do really truly believe that a key part of organizing, right, is around making sure that we can envision this new world, that we can see it. And for many folks, right, these terrible systems of oppression has really made it so that we will not be able to imagine, that we will not be able to create. So I just have a lot of respect for creative folks and artists and cultural producers who are pushing up against the ways that we're told to not be creative. So thank you so much for that. And my question then for you all is, how does it then feel for you, right, to be called a cultural producer in the diaspora? And what does that mean to you, right? Specifically to be doing this work here in the US, and really thinking about liberation, not only for our folks here in the US, but actually globally.
I can go. I think that, like, I take a lot of wisdom from our elders, and one of the things that is really that I learned while in conversation with elders is that, you know, like as Hmong people, like we believe that, you know, we like we're born to do things, and that we've agreed to all the things that we were gonna do on earth before we came down to earth. And so when we came here, we have all the knowledge and all the tools that we need, and that we just need to be reminded in order to do those things. And so it could be that people that we meet that reminds us that those are the things that we're supposed to do. And so for me, it is reminding people that they have all those tools already, and that they're here for a purpose, like all of us, and that we are meant to do great things, and that we're just not machines here to make a bunch of products and make money, but we are really beautiful people, and we are unique, and we are here for a purpose. And our purpose is to do great things in this world, all of us, and that we are supposed to do those things before we return to our ancestors. And so to me, what does it mean to be a cultural producer in the diaspora is to remind our people, our young people especially, that like we are an old people, that we have been here for a long time, 5,000 some years. And that our ancestors have left us with all this knowledge of what it means to be alive and what it means to be a good person and to walk on this earth and be whole and to heal. And we need to be reminded of that, and that like we are in one piece already, and all they have to do is be reminded of that, and that we each have to remind each other of those things. And so for me, it is to remind young people to love themselves, and that they're here for a purpose, and that we aren't just here to be machines, but we're here to learn love and to be loved, and we are all worthy of it, no matter who we are or who we love or who we choose to love, but we are all worthy of that, because we came right down from the heavens here to live out that dream of what we wanted to be. And so for me, it is reminding young people and our people of that.
I'm like, it looked like you want to say something next, Morrison or Tracy.
Oh man, yeah, Chong, you went there. Cultural producing is such a spiritual healing journey, and that's why I think so much art is healing. What does it mean for me? I'm American born, and so I went back and forth to the homeland, Vietnam, and I feel like my role is, through my art, is to keep our folks connected, and to continually resist the system. I've so many times wanted to go back to Vietnam to live, right? That's the glamorous Western privilege in me. Like, I get to go back and use my US dollars and live this glamorous life. But in my journey back and forth, there's so much of us here in the diaspora, because of imperialism, that have been stripped of our culture, of our history. Our history is filled with women warriors, gender queer spirits and deities, right? And that's stripped from us because we're in a different country that hates us. And so at one point in my journey, I told myself, like, I have to be here. And it hurts to be here. I hate it here. And this year alone has made me want to escape more and more back to Southeast Asia. But there are so many things that we need to reclaim. There's so much healing that we need to do. And in the organizing world, I think we're still reconciling how to be our authentic selves and intersectional with all those layers of our identities that have been stripped from us. Like, how do we reclaim spirituality in our work? How do we reclaim healing in our work? How do we bring creativity and life and joy back into the work? Because, like, newsflash, we are going to be in cycles of trauma for years from now. The impacts of this moment is ongoing, and like, if we continue to be in that cycle, there's going to be very little breaks for us to tap into that well and resource of that ancestral power and generational resilience that Chong so brilliantly said. Anyway, I feel honored that I have that gift. I feel honored that I know my gift as a queer Vietnamese woman, and all the forms of art that I'm excited to bring into my spaces. And thank you for this panel, because I there's a lot that I've felt lost myself in this past year, and there's a lot to reground and rebuild, and it's a hard process. And so, yeah. Go ahead, Morrison.
I just want to say, give me my purse. I'm ready to go. After all of that, like, you know, Chong and Tracy just took it and hit out of the ballpark. Give me my purse. I'm ready to go. I do get it right here. No, but I just want to say thank you for having me on this panel again. And this is my first panel after a whole entire year. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so nervous and like I'm messy on the inside, like I said. But you know, to be called a cultural producer in the diaspora, what it means to me is, you know, being able to connect to, like what Chong said, connecting to our younger kids and being able to remind them of like their most rawest, purest forms, which is, you know, they all have a gift and they all have love to push forward, and just being able to kind of guide them and, you know, being able to, you know, nurture them to become strong people. And I think, you know, with my whole art, it stems from not being who I was really meant to be. And it explained all of the answers of why, you know, pushing through the fashion industry, why I wasn't working, why it wasn't working, you know, I wasn't going forward. And it was just like, it was kind of, I was at a stuck moment. So, you know, Tracy spoke on feeling lost. And I think that resonated with me too. So being able to do this art form, I kind of was able to not only connect with my culture, but also kind of like answer like that real question that I've always been dying on the inside to do, inside to answer, which is to kind of like express my truest, most inner femininity and being able to leave, you know, an image for all the young women in my life to be looking forward and being, you know, strong. And I just want to be able to do that for the young kids. And I think, gosh, John, I'm like listening to you. I'm like, "Ooh, girl, like this is real." I'm like, she just took it and hit out of the ballpark. Like everything I wanted to say, she said it for me. So thank you for that. But yeah, no, it's just I'm just really glad to be here, and thank you so much. And you know, it's really a great honor.
Yeah. So Morrison, we actually have a request. We have a request. People are requesting, they would love to see you end the show with a dance. I would love to see it too. I also know how it is to be put right on the spot and not be prepared. So I'll let you make the decision on that, but we would love that.
You know, I'm very, very happy and grateful that, you know, everybody wants to see me dance, but good Lord. Actually, this costume is not meant to be danced in. This is just more of like a cultural outfit from like a specific era. However, if you do want to see videos of my group and what we do, you could search us up on YouTube. It's Motor.Khmer Performing Arts. Please contact me and I could definitely link you all the videos you need to see. And I would love to, I don't know if we can link videos here, but if you have any requests, I would love, connect with me personally. I would love to share that with you.
Yes. Okay. So we are working right now to go on and look at that, find some videos. Morrison, if you can find us one that you would like us to show, I think we might even close out with that because I do feel like that would be the best way to close this out. So if you can send the link, a link to our tech people right now. So yes, and thank you all for requesting that video because I've been sitting here also like I would really like to see Morrison's dance. Yeah, so thank you all so much. I know I was gonna ask for a closing question, but you all basically did the closing question already too. So I did want to just like, again, say thank you all so much for participating, for agreeing to sit here, share yourself with us, share your art with us, share just, a piece of you that's been so instrumental in making space in this movement for us. So thank you so much for that. And then just a reminder for people, please make sure you order your Shero t-shirt, right? This series has been a part of our Southeast Asian Liberation Shero. And it's really around uplifting and highlighting Southeast Asian women who have made huge contributions to our movement work. All the proceeds from the t-shirt sale will be going directly to supporting the leadership development services and the organizing work of Southeast Asian girls. So make sure you order your t-shirts. And then just also a reminder that I know tonight's conversation, I don't know how it's been for people. It's been very emotional for me, and also very inspiring. And I really want to continue to encourage people, right, as you're getting inspired, to really connect with a local organization in your community, right, to really start thinking about how you're going to contribute to this movement work, right, because we need more people. We need more people. And if we really truly love the women and queer and trans folks who have been doing this work, we need to join the work, right? We need to be putting our bodies on the line too. We need to be putting our minds in the line. We need to be putting our thoughts in the line, and really pushing for this new world, right? Where we are all valued and loved, and no longer harmed. So thank you all so much around that. I do, sorry, one quick thing. Oh, yes. And then also make sure you follow each of our panelists. The links have been dropped in the comments section. Follow all of them to support their work. Make sure you also follow Freedom Inc. to stay up to date with this month, specifically with us talking about Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and how we're supporting survivors during this time. And then I did want to just say something quickly. There was a question for you, Morrison, if you can answer before we show your video and close out. So the question is, can you tell us about your time-specific cultural outfit?
Yes. So this outfit is actually what will be regarded as a royalty, specifically during between like the 18th to 19th century, from when the French colonial protectorate happened in Cambodia. And at that time, that's when the laces and, you know, the pearls were introduced. However, Cambodian women were so defiant that they wanted to incorporate Khmer clothes into it as well. So this is just from the 18th and 19th century of that time. And yeah.
Thank you, Morrison. And then to close us out, I'm wondering if you can just do a quick intro of the video before we show it. Yeah, if you want to do just a quick introduction of the video.
Yes, so this is my dance group, My Performing Arts. And this was actually a virtual performance that we did back in November. And it's regarding to a legend called Moni Mekala and Diem Aso. And I play as the Prince Vorachon, which is the green character. And basically, the girl character in the middle is the one who is the most powerful out of the three. She has the most powerful weapon. And so there's the ogre right next to her who is after her to obtain that powerful weapon. So the dance kind of, correlate between, the battle between those two, but it also kind of relates to the thunder and the rain and the lightning. So it's considered that when these two fights, that's when thunder and rain happens in Cambodia. And, it just brings prosperity and blessings to the crops that's in the hot weather of Cambodia. So yeah, that's just a real quick synopsis.
Sorry, folks, we're trying to work out the sound. But we did also drop the YouTube link into the comments. I'm so sorry. I don't know why our sound is not working, you all. But we did drop the YouTube link into the comments, so please make sure you all check that out, okay? All right. So I'm not sure if we're able to fix it, but I would love it if everyone can please take a look at the video. And then I know we are over our time. Yes, our tech people aren't able to figure it out. Sorry, I'm throwing our tech people under the bus right now. Yeah, but please check out the video. I'm gonna make sure right after this I'm gonna go look at it because I'm all like, ooh, all the colors. But yeah, again, I just want to give a big thank you to all of our panelists, and thank you to everybody who joined us tonight. You all have a good night. Bye.